Welcome to Jazz Time. JazzTime.com is an online store that buys, sells, trades authentic luxury watches. We make these videos so our customers can easily choose the best watch for themselves in the comfort of their own home. If you like this watch and would like to purchase it at the lowest price anywhere online, click on the link in the description below to buy it at JazzTime.com. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the Richard Mille RM6702 Automatic Winding Extra Flat Italy edition in black carbon TPT with red and green accents, the color of the Italian flag. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the history of the 6702, then tell you about where this watch stands in the lineup of other similar 6702s, then tell you about the case bezel dial bracelet, finally try it on and give you my thoughts. So let's start with the history. Well, Richard Mille hasn't been around very long. They started somewhere, I think, early 2000s. Now it's 24. So that makes it approximately 20, let's just say approximately 25 years. Not a very long time. And in that short time, they've risen to one of the top watchmakers, at least in terms of sales in the world. I would say the top watchmakers, at least in terms of sales, prestige, and tradability, desirability, would be Rolex at the top, Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe, and Richard Mille. These four are the four big dogs when it comes to luxury watches in general. Richard Mille has a very niche market. They do sporting watches, not dress watches, and really outlandish, crazy, very expensive, limited watches. Okay, that's their sort of niche. But of those three that I mentioned, not named Rolex, Patek, AP, and Richard Mille all did 1 billion in sales, and that far exceeds anybody else any other brand. Okay, all right. At any rate, let's talk about the 6702. Where did it come from? It actually came from the 6701, as you can imagine, which is basically the same version as what you see here, except I guess you could say it's the dress version, or maybe the non-sports version, because I just said they don't make dress watches, but that's not really true. They can be worn in a dress setting, but not your typical dress watch. The 6701, this is a 02, the 01 is their idea of sort of a dress watch. And it's also super thin, like what you see here. It's a little less than 8 millimeters. When Richard Mille came out with the 6701 extra thin in approximately 2016, it was just with a metal case. They made it in white gold, rose gold, titanium, and some diamond variations of it, which are also really awesome, but they're not for pure sports. You can wear them with a suit, you can wear them just walking around, but they're not pure sports ones. And then in 2017, a year later, they came out with the super sporty version of it. So what are the characteristics of the 6702 that came out? It's that it's super light. It only weighs 32 grams. Now, to give you an idea, that's like the weight of a spoon. Everybody picks up a fork or spoon. It's actually even a little bit lighter than that. And to give you some reference, if you were to if any of you ever had a Rolex, they're around 100 grams, give or take, 115 or something like that, like a Rolex Submariner. If you try, for example, like a platinum Daytona or even a rose gold Daytona or a rose gold Rolex, it's around 180 grams. So this one at 30 is really light, and as I just said, it feels like about the weight of like a small spoon. Hardly weighs anything, and we'll get to reason why. Okay, so anyways, the 6702, which is what you see here, is the sporty version. It's thin and very light, and it only tells time only. It doesn't even have a date. So it's the most basic. It has no complication to it, but it's super light and it's super thin. Of course, it has to be, because to be super thin, you can't have a bunch of complications. So it's meant to be used in sporting activities. And they do. I'll get to it when I tell you about in a little bit, but that's what it's meant to be used for. It's really sporting situation. It's not the watch that you wear with a suit, or when you're dressed up, you wear this to do sports. Crazy to think, because this watch retails for, or is selling on the gray market for, almost 300,000. And by the way, you can buy it at jazztime.com at the lowest price anywhere online. Okay, so let's get that's a little bit about the history of this watch. And of course, since 2017 until now, which is 24, it's done very, very well. There's a long waiting list for this watch, as well as you have to have quite a big purchase history before you can be considered for something like this, which is why most people, including the person who bought this watch that you're looking at, buy it from jazztime.com, because there is no wait list there. You just pay market price. And some people might complain about paying market price. Well, if you want to wait like 5 years and get it from Richard Mille, please go ahead, But if you want to buy it today, well, here's the price, whatever the market is. Okay, anyways, that's a little bit about the history. Okay, let's talk about where this watch stands in the lineup of other similar 6702s. Now, when the 6702 came out, they came out with several variations. Now, all of them are made with either carbon TPT or quartz TPT, and I'll tell you about that when we get to the case. I'm not going to name these names because they're kind of hard to pronounce, and I don't think most people would would recognize them anyways. Okay, but I'll just tell you, they had a white one which had the French flag on it, and then they had a green one which was this high jumper. Okay, by the way, the white one it was Alex Pintarot. I wonder how many people actually know who he is. I actually have no idea who he is if it weren't for this watch, but that's besides the point. He's a skier, and the watch is white, as you can imagine, white for snow. And then they also made an all green one, which was for a high jumper from South Africa. Okay, and then they made a black one, which again was French colored, for Sebastian Ogier, who I guess he's a race car driver. I've never heard of him, but doesn't matter. It was a very good looking watch, and it was black. And then they made I guess you call it red or pink, for this high jumper named Mutaz Essa Barsim. I'm sure you probably have not heard of him. I mean, maybe 1 out of 100 people who are watching this have heard of him. But anyways, that's not the point. The point is they made a very cool watch, and what they did is they had each one of these athletes actually wear the watch during their performance, or when they're high jumping or skiing or whatever, to show that, hey, this watch can actually be worn in these athletic endeavors, and they can win their whatever their sport is. And that leads credence to the fact that this watch is not only exclusive, beautifully done, but it's also functional. And that's a real selling point that Richard Mille tries to put, to let us know about, is that their watches can be really worn and used. I'm not so sure how many of our viewers are going to actually, or buyers, are going to buy this almost $300,000 watch and go high jumping with it, or can even high jump. But that's besides the point. It's to know that you could do it. Okay, now the button that you see in front of you now was released in 2023. So they released a bunch of different variations over the years. They also did a Germany edition, and they don't have it anymore. It's got replaced with this one. This is the Italy edition, which has the Italian flag colors on it. And there's only 2 of them in black, and this is one of them. Okay? All right. So, and I believe they probably, over the next few years, before the 6702 gets replaced by maybe an 03 or something, that it will have many different variations to come. Okay? And all right. Anyways, let's move on to talk about the case. Since we talked about where this watch stands in the lineup, let's talk about the case now. Now the case, what is special about the case? Well, the very first thing, I'll just say it, is the thickness. The thickness of this watch is it's actually 7-point-something millimeters, 7.8 millimeters. Very, very thin. To give you some idea, a Submariner is, or like a Rolex, is around 12 millimeters. Anything less than 10, which is what some of the APs and Pateks, Patek Philippe's, can be around 10 millimeters for their thinner watches. 8, or actually 7.8, is ultra thin. So they call this extra flat. I'd call it extra thin. It's very thin. Okay. Also, it's not very big going from 12 to 6. It's only 47.5 millimeters. Now, to give you some reference, you might not know how much that is, but let's say their bigger watch, it's 50 millimeters, and from going up and down, like for example, their 65, their RM 6501 or their RM 30 is all around 50 millimeters, and an AP offshore is actually even bigger. I think it's like 52 or 53 millimeters going up and down. So 47 is quite thin, so it's going to fit almost everybody's wrist. In fact, I've even sold this watch to females, so it's not like it's very big, which is a good thing because it's a sports watch. And also, so going left to right, that means 9 to 3 is 38 millimeters, and that's not that big either, right? A lot of men's watches are 40 millimeters, so this being 38 it's a it's not too small, but it's a good size. Okay, all right, that's the case. Now, as I said before, I was going to tell you about this, the way that they made the case. So they take okay, when you see it in black, it's made of carbon TPT, and that TPT stands for thin. I forgot what. I have to look this up. Thin something. Let me look it up here. Oh, thin ply technology. North Thin Ply Technology. Okay, what it means is that they take Richard Mille found a company in Switzerland, Konosene, something like that. I can't pronounce it, but anyways, they found a company in Switzerland that makes these composite materials, and they basically innovated their own material to use for these watches. And why would they want to do that? Well, first of all, they're Richard Mille, so they want to do everything different. They don't want to use like titanium or gold and this kind of stuff. They do that, but on their ultra sports watches, which this one is, they use really special materials. And one of the special materials is what you see here. It's carbon TPT, and that's thin ply technology. And what they do is they have strands or sheets of this carbon, and they lay them at 45-degree angles to each other so that the weave is very strong. Then they heat it up to 120 degrees Celsius, and then they subject it to high pressure of 60 bars, which is like pretty heavy, I think. And then they take it and machine it down so that it looks the way it looks. So basically, they do a really good job, make an awesome looking case, and this is the result of it. Okay, and so you can be sure that it's not going to scratch, it's not going to dent, it's super duper strong, it's super lightweight, and it's just a superior material than, for example, titanium. Okay, and of course it takes a lot of work, I would imagine. Okay, anyways, that is the case. And now let's move on to, what should we move on to? Let's move on to the movement, okay? Now, the movement here is, it's actually derived from the 6701, and I have a 6701 at the safe I was just looking at, and I looked at the movement on that one and this one. I really don't see much resemblance. To me, they look totally different. But Richard Mille says that it's a derived from it. I'm not really sure what is derived from it. To me, it looks totally different. It uses a caliber CRMA7, and what should I say about this dial? Well, the watch itself is only 7.8 millimeters. I'm going to move it in different directions so you can see, but I think they did an incredible job when it comes to depth. They were able to make this watch look like it's so thick, and it's like looks almost endless in there, even though it's only 7.8 millimeters. A super thin watch that looks like it has 3D depth to it. How did they achieve that? Well, they layered very carefully, I would imagine, but they layered their skeletonization in such a way that it's one on top of each other, and it ends up looking like a work of art in the sense that you can see a huge depth to it. Okay, now let me show you the movement in the back. Now, of course, Richard Mille is known for the skeletonizations. So if you look at these bridges, which are these lines and everything, they Oh, okay. Sorry. Let's start with this. Let me turn to the back real quick, where you can see the rotor. Okay. So normally on a rotor, you'll have the end of the pendulum being in some kind of precious metal, because precious metals are heavy and you need this thing to actually turn, right? So they put that in white gold. On the 6701, they put the whole thing in platinum, but here they put that in white gold so that it's heavy and it'll make this pendulum move. Because if the pendulum moves, then it winds the mainspring, which is inside the barrel that holds the power. When it unwinds, it allows the watch to move, which is driven by this pendulum, which is driven by your wrist movement. But what they did here, really interesting, is if you look at the thing that holds the pendulum or the rotor, it's actually carbon TPT. And why did they do that? Well, probably part of it is looks, I would imagine, but functionally, it makes it lighter. And they're trying to save every gram here, which is why this thing only weighs like 32 grams, including the strap, by the way. So how did they do that? Well, that this is the result of it, okay? And if you look at the skeletonization from the front, it also looks pretty awesome. Okay, now let's move on to the dial. The dial, it's hard to say this thing has a dial, but I looked on their website and it says that the dial is, okay, so the dial is this part. I actually consider it kind of like the bezel almost, the green, white, and red part. They consider this the dial. And you see these black lines, looks like arrows, that's considered the dial. Everything else below that is considered the movement. They say the dial is made from 0.4 millimeters of titanium sheet. 0.4. 0.4 is like, do you know how small that is? You know how big 1 millimeter is? It's a fourth of that. That's like a human hair, I think. So I'm not so sure I read that right, but I mean, even though it's so thin, it looks like actually pretty thick. Okay, at any rate, what they do is on each of the models, they paint the bezel, or sort of this inner bezel right here, in the color of the flag that the country represents. So for example, this one represents Italy, so they put it in green and red, right? It could also be like a Christmas watch, I guess, right? Green and red. Okay. All right. Anyways, so that's the dial. Now let's move on to the strap. The strap here is, it's a Velcro strap. You might think, oh, it's not a big deal, but actually, it's kind of grown on me. I actually like this Velcro strap, and you can change it for an elastic strap. So they try to keep it low weight. All right. Anyways, time to wrap this thing up and for me to try it on my wrist and tell you what I think. I'm 6 foot tall, 200 pounds. I weigh, and I have a 7.5 inch wrist. And as you can see, when I put this watch on my wrist, it really looks fantastic. I'm a real huge fan of Richard Mille. I really like the brand. To me, they're right up there, neck and neck with AP and Patek. The difference is Richard Mille to me is a pure sports watch. You wear this, watch in a pure sporting manner. And why do I like the extra flat 6702 that you see here? Well, I like it because it's an RM that is very wearable. Some of the other ones, like the 65, is really kind of big, and the 30 is also kind of big too. And RM is not making. They have basically 5 categories of non-limited watches, which is the 6701, the 02, then the 7201, the 65, and the 30. Those basically are the non-limited ones. It's only 5 categories. And of those 5 categories, I would say this is the most wearable daily watch that you could get, because it's thin, it's light, and it's still every bit an RM. Okay, look, if you want to buy this watch, click on the link in the description below to buy it at jazztime.com.
If you want to find out more about the watch you just saw in the video, you can just click below on Show More to see the full description. Then you can check the link next to model as seen in video, click on it, and you will get to the proper page where you can see all the details. If you're watching on a mobile phone, you have to click on the arrow down on the right hand side below the video to see the full description. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you would like to share this video with your friends, you can use the share button below and share it on any platform you like. If you have questions, constructive feedback, want to tell us about some mistakes or misspeaks, just write a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this, you should subscribe to our channel and visit our channel page where you can find all the videos. And if you're interested in a specific watch brand, you can check out our playlists. If you want to check the price for a watch or want to buy one, remember at jazztime.com you always get a steep discount, so you should check the prices with us. If you want to know the price for a specific watch, just go to Google, type in JazzTime, plus the brand, model and the details you're interested in, and Google will find the right page for you. Thank you for watching.